Alrighty guys, what's going on? Linky here, and in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about Pokemon's future on the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, the Nintendo Switch 2 has been officially announced, and we're going to learn more about it in the coming months. But when will we finally see Pokemon's first game on the Switch 2? Not a Switch title that's backwards compatible, but a brand new Pokemon game exclusive to the Switch 2. Let's jump right into things. The Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out this year. It was officially announced by Nintendo last week, and they also announced that the first Nintendo Direct talking about the Switch 2 is going to be happening in April. A lot of the community believes that the Switch 2 is going to be releasing this summer, so they can get a big initial sale of consoles and then roll into a holiday season with a big title, and they can sell another, 10 million plus units or whatever they end up selling in the holiday season. There's going to be big games coming out on the Switch 2. It seems like the next Mario Kart is going to be a launch title. We're going to have a new Metroid Prime game coming this year that, while it may still come out on the original Switch, it will probably be heavily marketed as here's what it looks like on the Switch 2. And it wouldn't shock me at all if we get a big Mario game or some other big first-party Nintendo title exclusive to the Switch 2 coming this fall alongside some kind of party game to give Nintendo a big first year of the console. What I don't believe we're going to see in its first year, however, is a mainline Pokemon game. As I discussed in the previous video, I think Legends ZA is going to be a Switch title that they show off on Switch 2 and say can run on Switch 2, of course being backwards compatible, but it is going to be a Switch game. I also think there's every chance that we get a Pokemon spin-off title this year. It seems like we've waited long enough for one. They've been dabbling in spin-off titles on mobile recently with the new TCG game that came out last year on mobile, but it seems like we're overdue for a new spin-off title on the main console. So I think Pokemon is going to have some games for us on deck this year, and while their big heavy hitter Legends ZA is probably not going to be a Switch 2 exclusive, there's every chance that the spin-off game could be. I think there's every possibility that we could get a Pokemon game shown off at Pokemon Day that is slated for 2025 with no release date, no designation of Switch or Switch 2, and it turns out it's going to be a Switch 2 title, something coming out in the summer or something coming out in the fall. I think that's entirely possible. In terms of mainline Pokemon, we're going to be waiting a little bit, I think, unfortunately, to really see what Pokemon can do with Nintendo's better, more updated hardware. If you are a longtime fan of the Pokemon series, you will know that Nintendo and Pokemon not exactly being on the same wavelength and timeline in terms of game releases and system releases is nothing new. Pokemon Black and White 2 came out when the 3DS was well into its life at that point. It had been out for a period of time, and we were still getting Pokemon games on the DS. It took until the end of 2013 with Pokemon X and Y for us to get our first taste of 3D Pokemon. Generation 5 was very late in the Nintendo DS's life cycle, and it still came out there, even though Nintendo was prepping for their next big system. In years past, we have had games dual release on systems. When Pokemon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team came out, there was a version that was available on the Game Boy Advance, and there was a version that was sold for the DS. Pokemon has long strided the line between, are we keeping up with Nintendo's newest hardware, or are we forging our own path, releasing games and experiences where we already know there's an install base, and then we'll kind of lag behind Nintendo for a period. I understand that there's a perfectly good argument to make from fans that, well, if Nintendo wants to maximize what they're going to get out of the Switch 2 in its early life, they need their big heavy hitters lined up. They need a Zelda coming in the first 2 years. They need a Mario coming in the first 2 years. They need a big multiplayer game, whether that's a Mario Kart or a Smash or a new Splatoon. They need something like that. To complement all of it, they should want a brand new big Pokemon game. Pokemon dominates Nintendo's top 10 and top 20 games sold on all of their consoles, and that's no different on the Nintendo Switch. Go look at the best-selling Nintendo Switch games of all time. You will see multiple Pokemon games on those lists. They do incredibly well. They're incredibly successful. For as much complaining as the Pokemon community loves to do on social media these days, in the last couple generations, Pokemon is doing better financially and sales-wise than it almost ever has. It is still a behemoth in the media space. It still sells merch, trading cards, TV and video game adaptations, movies. It sells all of this still. They want Pokemon front and center on their new console. But given how long we've been waiting for ZA, given how long it's been since the previous generation of Scarlet and Violet started, it feels like we're in a bit of a strange moment where Pokemon might not be ready to give us a next-gen experience until 2026. Seems much more likely to me that we get a new generation of Pokemon announced next year, and that is the big Switch 2 title. Some people may ask, well, has Pokemon even started developing for the Switch 2 yet? There are tons of rumors and stories in the Pokemon community about Game Freak being late to develop for Nintendo's new systems, and I don't generally subscribe to those ideas. I give Game Freak a little bit more credit than some in the Pokemon community do. It doesn't mean I'm not critical of them at times, but I think they need to be treated as, you know, a generally well-run company who kind of knows what's coming. So I think there's every possibility that they are already developing the next generation of Pokemon with Switch 2 hardware in tow, ready for the game to come out next year. I think that's entirely possible. And I think that our first offering of a new generation of Pokemon on a Switch 2 is not going to be until next year. Listen, I could be wrong. Pokemon could have done a pivot. It's entirely plausible that Pokemon had Legends ZA ready to go to a certain degree, decided to push it off to the next Switch, and it's going to be a title coming out on Switch 2 this year in the holidays. It's possible. I'll be honest, I haven't entirely kept up with a lot of the Pokemon leakers. There have been some major revelations in Pokemon leaks over the last calendar year. Things dating back to Pokemon in Gen 2 and Gen 3, and talking about Pokemon's plans projecting into the future. So this could have been covered, and I could just be making stuff up. But to me, I don't really see Game Freak making that sort of pivot where they're pushing development to get it ready for the Switch 2. I could be wrong, and that would be awesome in terms of seeing Pokemon run at its peak. It doesn't faze me either way. I will have the Nintendo Switch 2 when it launches. I will have the games. I will be ready for a Pokemon game to come out on it. So if Pokemon's next offerings are Switch 2 exclusive, that's fine by me. It just doesn't necessarily seem like the playbook I think Game Freak is going to run with this. But what do you guys think? Do you think Pokemon is going to wait until 2026 to have a firm offering on the Nintendo Switch 2, something next gen? Or do you think we're going to get a game this year, whether it's a spin-off game or a mainline game, that is marketed as part of Switch 2's first year lineup? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Pokemon discussions like it in the future, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on so you never miss any of my future content. I've been Linky, and we'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.